Let me tell you something that took me way too long to admit. I didn't notice the moment my marriage started to rot. Not at first. It wasn't a scream in the night or a lipstick smear on a collar. No, it was smaller, slower, like a faucet left dripping until one day you walk in and find the sink overflowing. Kathleen and I had been married 12 years, long enough that nobody asks how you met anymore. They just assume you've always been together. We lived in a quiet, sun-faded neighborhood outside Charlotte, the kind where everyone cuts their lawn diagonally and still waves to the mailman. We had 2 cars, a mortgage, and matching mugs from our last trip to Hilton Head. We were fine. No, seriously. We were fine. That's how I described it whenever people asked. We're doing fine. Like a weather forecast that doesn't quite commit. Now, I'm not one of those guys who checks their wife's location or flips out if she comes home late from book club. I've got a job in supply chain management. I coach JV baseball at the local high school, and I believe in giving people space. I grew up in a house where silence was the loudest language spoken, so I learned early not to go looking for trouble unless you wanted to find it. Kathleen worked as an office manager for a private orthopedic clinic, fancy title for wrangling doctors who think they're gods. She used to come home with wild stories, laughing so hard she'd cry about some surgeon who microwaved a yogurt with the foil still on. She had this way of filling a room, always buzzing with some kind of energy. That buzz? It started going quiet. At first, it was the morning routines. We used to sit at the counter, me sipping coffee, her stealing spoonfuls of my cereal even though she had her own. Then one day, she started waking up earlier than me. I'd come down and find her already dressed, hair done, makeup on. Said she wanted to beat traffic. The clinic's 6 miles away. Then came the smiles that didn't reach her eyes. The long showers. The "I'm so tired" at night. The cold hand brushing mine and pulling away like I'd asked for too much. I figured maybe it was burnout. Stress. I offered to plan a weekend getaway. She said she was swamped. I bought her a massage gift card. She never used it. It didn't help that we stopped fighting. No arguments, no raised voices. Just quiet. That flat, weightless quiet that sets in when 2 people stop needing to convince the other of anything. I'd almost have preferred a yelling match. At least then you know you're still in it. Around that time, Kathleen started going to this Wednesday night community development leadership course over at the Civic Center. I never questioned it. I'm not the suspicious type. But somewhere around week 5 of her class, I realized something strange. She'd leave in a rush, always with her laptop bag, a water bottle, and a change of shoes, and come back smelling faintly of dryer sheets and stale air, like she'd been sitting in someone else's living room. One night I asked, "How's the course going?" She blinked, like I'd startled her. "Good," she said, then paused. "We're doing mock city council debates." "Nice. Are you mayor yet?" She laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. Hardly. That was the first time I noticed her hesitate. Not stumble over her words. Just hesitate. As if she had to run the sentence through a filter before letting it out. Like someone who'd practiced the truth, but not believed it. Things carried on like that for a while. I'd sit at the table alone most nights, eating leftovers from the night before while she texted in the kitchen. She claimed it was her course group chat, coordinating logistics. I said okay. And meant it. Kind of. Then came the Friday she forgot her laptop bag. She was rushing out the door, halfway down the driveway when she ran back in, grabbed it, and left again. I happened to glance over and noticed something odd. The zipper was busted open. And inside? Not a laptop. Not even a charger. Just an old notebook, a pair of heels, and a scarf I hadn't seen since our anniversary trip 2 years ago. Weird, right? That night, I did something I never thought I'd do. I sat down and tried to write her a letter. Not a love letter. More like an inquiry. I wanted to understand what I was seeing, what I wasn't seeing, but I couldn't find the words. Instead, I started taking notes. Yeah, I know how that sounds. Creepy. Paranoid. But I didn't trust myself anymore, not my instincts, not my memory, not even my own version of events. I convinced myself for months that I was imagining the distance, that it was seasonal, cyclical, that if I waited long enough, she'd come back to me like a tide. But tides don't come back if the moon's moved on. And here's where it really started to unravel. One Thursday afternoon, I got a call from a guy named Nate Warner. I didn't recognize the name. Said he was calling about a storage unit on Claremont Drive. I told him he had the wrong Jacob. He read off the phone number again. It was mine. He said, "I just wanted to confirm, are you still planning to cancel the lease? Or should we charge for next month?" I said, "I've never had a storage unit. He said, "It's under Kathleen Warner. You're listed as the emergency contact." Funny thing is, Kathleen's maiden name wasn't Warner. It was Ellis. So unless she changed her name for fun, something wasn't adding up. I played it cool. Told Nate I'd check with my wife. Hung up. Stared at the phone for 10 minutes. Then I got in my car and drove. The unit was 12 miles from our house. Not far. And maybe that's what stung the most, how close it had all been, this whole time. I parked in front of a long, beige warehouse and walked through the front doors like I had every right to be there. Told the front desk guy I was Kathleen's husband. He shrugged and handed me a clipboard. "She's in 108B. I walked down a fluorescent-lit hallway and found the unit. It wasn't locked. When I opened the door, I didn't find luggage or furniture or anything you'd expect from a storage unit. What I found were lives. Boxes labeled with names I didn't recognize. Framed photos with someone else's face cut out. A spare toothbrush. Receipts from towns I've never visited. A stack of handwritten cards signed K. I picked up one and read, "I miss you already. Counting the days until next weekend. K." The return address? Warner Street, Asheville, North Carolina. And just like that, I knew. Not because of the name. Not because of the storage unit. Not even because of the letter. But because Kathleen doesn't use dashes. She signs everything with a full name. Always has. Except, apparently, when she's someone else. And in that moment, something in me clicked. I wasn't confused. I wasn't even angry. I was awake. Like I'd been living in a play, and someone finally yanked the curtain down. So now? Now I'm watching. Because I'm not the guy who explodes. I'm the guy who studies the map before the escape. And I've just found the first breadcrumb. Next stop, the trail. I've always thought the difference between suspicion and certainty is about 4 seconds. That's how long it took me to go from maybe something's off to, yep, she's cheating, as I stood inside that cold storage unit, holding one of those generic Hallmark cards with a message that sounded like it belonged in a Lifetime movie. There were no naked photos, no locked safes, no flashing neon signs that said, "Your wife's been living a double life." Just a card signed with a dash. And that was enough. Because Kathleen doesn't do casual. She doesn't abbreviate. She's the kind of person who spells out approximately in text messages. If she signed something K, that wasn't for me. That was for someone who didn't really know her. Which meant someone new. I didn't take anything from the unit. I didn't need to. The whole scene was already burned into my head. I walked out like I'd never been there, nodded at the front desk guy like I was just another married idiot helping his wife declutter. Got in the truck. Sat in the driver's seat for 20 minutes with the engine off. Thinking. Now, this is where most guys make the mistake. They confront her right then. Get emotional. Start swinging blind, hoping something hits. But that's not how you find the truth. You want the full picture? You shut up and pay attention. You listen to the silences. The edits in the story. You wait for the lie to trip over its own shoelaces. So I started small. I asked Kathleen how her council meeting went that night. She blinked twice and said, "Great. We're working on a mock budget exercise." Then she poured herself a glass of white wine, something she only does when she's either nervous or trying too hard to look relaxed. Which, at that point, was kind of the theme. Over the next week, I started noticing things I'd brushed off before. Her laptop? Never left open anymore. Her charger? Now always in her purse. The scarf I saw in her bag? Gone. Replaced by a new one she claimed she found on sale at Kohl's. Then came the clue that finally broke the pattern. Kathleen's always been meticulous about her calendars, paper, and digital. Her personal planner is basically a museum piece. Color-coded tabs, highlighters, sticky notes, the works. So when I accidentally knocked her tote bag off the kitchen chair and saw the planner spill open, I played dumb and bent down to help. That's when I saw it. Tuesday, 7 p.m., WS, closing meeting. Now, that might not sound like much to you, but there was no WS in her civic course. No initials like that on the attendance sheet she let slip one night back in March when she asked me to help her print it. I know, because I alphabetized the names while helping her sort the group into breakout teams. I remember thinking, who the hell names their kid Zayden? So I took a photo of the page on my phone while pretending to dust it off. She thanked me, laughed nervously, and offered to make dinner. Which, for the record, is something she hadn't voluntarily done in 6 months. WS. That was the next breadcrumb. And I was getting hungry. I didn't go full psycho with it. No tailing her. No burner phones. No hiding under beds. I just did what any self-respecting guy who's being emotionally binged would do. I got curious. The next Tuesday, I told her I was helping Coach Peters with spring ball and wouldn't be home until after 10. She nodded without a blink and said, "Good luck with tryouts," like she was reading from a script. So I left, drove around the block, came back and parked at the end of our street with the lights off. It felt ridiculous, sitting there in a car like some jilted teenager. But the thing is, when you get treated like a stranger in your own house long enough, you stop caring about dignity. At exactly 6:52 p.m., she left the house. Alone. Dressed up. Not in the budget discussion kind of way, either. This was lipstick and heels. She got in her car and took off down Weston Avenue. I gave her a head start, then followed from a distance. I stayed 2 cars behind like I'd seen in movies, though to be honest, I was just hoping I wouldn't lose her. She wasn't driving to the Civic Center. She passed it without even blinking. Instead, she drove to this squat, low-rise office building near the Beltway. Looked like it used to be a law office or maybe a dentist back in the day. Now, the sign outside just said Winstead Solutions. WS. And there it was. Kathleen parked, walked up to the door, and buzzed in like she owned the place. 5 minutes later, a guy came down to let her in. Late 40s, well-dressed, too confident for a Tuesday. He touched the small of her back as they walked inside. I didn't need to see any more. I sat there in the dark, watching the building's windows glow faintly from inside, like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. I didn't go home right away. I drove around town, past the school, the old diner, the church where we got married. Everywhere looked different. Like the whole town was in on something I wasn't. When I got back home, Kathleen was already in bed. She mumbled something about a long meeting and turned over. And I said nothing. Because I wasn't ready yet. Not for her. And not for me. I needed more than visual confirmation. I needed a way to flip the chessboard without tipping her off. So I started planning. Next day, I took a sick day. Kathleen thought I was at work. I wasn't. I drove straight to Winstead Solutions. Waited in the lot. Around noon, I watched WS himself stroll out for lunch. Got a photo of him on my phone. Then I followed him to a gastropub across town. Sat 2 booths away. Listened. He ordered the same salad twice because he liked the crunch. Told the bartender he was flying to Denver next week. Paid in cash. I snapped a photo of the receipt when he got up to use the restroom. His name was printed in the customer notes. William Sutter. I looked him up that night. Mid-level corporate consultant. Divorced. 2 kids. Lives across the county line in a gated condo complex with a fake lake and yoga on Sundays. Real original. Kathleen had a type. Just turns out it wasn't me anymore. Still, none of this explained why she used a storage unit, or who the other names on those boxes belonged to, or why she'd bother keeping anything secret if she planned on leaving me. Unless she didn't plan on leaving me at all. Unless I was plan A, and Billy Crunch salad was just stress relief. That's the part that stuck in my ribs like a bad meal. Because I wasn't just angry anymore, I was insulted. Turns out, the worst part of being cheated on isn't the betrayal. It's the logistics. It's realizing you've been demoted from husband to furniture. That someone thinks you're too dumb, too nice, or too numb to ever notice. And maybe that's what did it. That little voice inside me that finally whispered, "Don't just find the truth. Make it count." Because if Kathleen thought she could juggle 2 lies without dropping one, she was about to get her first real test. And I was going to be the examiner. You know how you can tell when someone's lying, even if you can't prove it? It's not in what they say, it's what they don't say. The gaps. The edits. The blanks they hope you won't fill in. Kathleen had gotten good at it. Scary good. But the thing about rehearsed stories is, they can't hold up under pressure. Sooner or later, something gives. And I was done playing the quiet husband. I didn't sleep much the night after I followed her to Billy Sutter's office. I lay there staring at the ceiling fan, listening to it click with every rotation, and planning out every move like I was drawing blueprints for a heist. Because if I was going to confront her, it wasn't going to be with a shaky voice and a broken heart. I wanted her exposed. Cornered. I wanted the air sucked out of her lies so fast she wouldn't even know what hit her. That next morning, Kathleen poured herself coffee and asked if I needed anything from the store. Normal. Relaxed. Like she hadn't spent last night with someone else's hands on her back. Actually, yeah, I said, flipping the page on the newspaper I wasn't reading. You still seeing that life coach? She froze for a second. It was quick, half a blink, but I caught it. Life coach, she echoed, all casual. You mean Rebecca? That was months ago. I nodded slowly. Right. Just came to mind. One of the guys at work was asking about couples counseling. Thought maybe I'd recommend her. She smiled. I'll text you her info. But she didn't. Strike one. That weekend, I invited her to dinner at a spot we used to like downtown. Classy, small, just enough candlelight to keep things polite. I made a reservation for 6:30, told her to wear something nice. I wanted this to look like a date, not a declaration of war. She showed up in a black dress I hadn't seen in years. Looked great, of course. That was half the curse of it. How beautiful someone can look while tearing your life apart. We ordered. Chatted. She made a joke about the server being cute, and I laughed like I wasn't imagining stabbing my fork into the creme brulee. Then I leaned in. Can I ask you something? Her eyes flicked up. Alert. Guarded. Of course. Who's William Sutter? The pause was so long it might have had a sequel. Then, just like that, she blinked and smiled. He's just a client. Why? I nodded slowly. Client of the clinic? No. He works with the civic group. One of the sponsors. Why are you asking? I leaned back, taking a sip of my drink. Ran into him last week. Seemed familiar. He mentioned a woman named Kat who helps with the community initiative. Her smile thinned. I go by Kat sometimes. You've never gone by Kat once in 12 years. And there it was, crack number 2. She set her fork down carefully, like she was performing surgery. Jacob, why are you suddenly grilling me about this? I smiled. I'm not. Just making conversation. She didn't believe me. I could see it in the way her shoulders shifted, just slightly. Her body knew the fight was coming before her brain did. But I wasn't done yet. I wanted her to squirm, to feel the walls closing in. So I waited until the server brought the check. Then, in my calmest, most indifferent tone, I asked, Oh, by the way, how long have you had that storage unit? Her face drained. And for a split second, I thought she was going to lie. I saw the words form in her mouth. But she caught herself. What storage unit? Claremont Drive. Winstead Storage. You listed me as your emergency contact. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. Don't worry, I said, tossing a few bills onto the table. I didn't take anything. But I saw the cards. The ones signed with a dash. The receipts. Asheville. Jacob. And before you start, I cut in, just know that I already know. I followed you Tuesday night. I know about Billy. I know he's not your client. I know he's not your civic sponsor. And I know that whatever fantasy you've been playing in that rental office is about to end. Silence. Just clinking silverware from the next table over and the dull throb of some piano cover of a Coldplay song. You've been spying on me, she finally said, her voice sharp and low. I tilted my head. Spying implies secrecy. I just paid attention. You were sloppy, Kathleen. That storage unit? Amateur hour. A paper trail with glitter pins and initials? Are you 12? Her mouth opened, but no words followed. So I stood up. We'll talk more at home. You have a lot of explaining to do. I left her there with the check and drove home feeling something close to satisfaction. Not revenge, not yet. But the first taste of it. She got home an hour later. Still dressed up. Still trying to look like she had control. Let's talk, she said, stepping into the living room like she owned it. Oh, now you want to talk? I said, flipping channels with the remote. By all means. She stood in front of the TV. You could have just asked me, she said, instead of playing detective. No, I said, looking her dead in the eyes. I couldn't have. Because you don't tell the truth. You give performances. You rehearse lines. You wear lies like perfume and hope no one notices the smell. I didn't mean for it to get this far. Didn't mean for what, exactly? She swallowed. It started during the civic course. He was charming. Smart. And I didn't. Nope. Stop. I stood. I don't need the emotional TED Talk. I need facts. Are you in love with him? Her eyes filled with tears. I don't know. Are you sleeping with him? She looked away. Let me help you. You are. Because otherwise, you wouldn't be this quiet. She didn't deny it. Just stood there. I nodded slowly. All right. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to keep going to your meetings. You're going to keep seeing Billy. And you're going to think I'm still the idiot you married. Her brow furrowed. What? I'm not leaving yet, I said calmly. I want to see how this ends. You had your secrets. Now I have mine. She looked terrified for the first time. I leaned in just slightly. You thought you were clever, Kat. But the thing about clever people is they always underestimate the quiet ones. And with that, I walked past her and went to bed. I didn't sleep. But I didn't need to. Because the next move was mine. And I was going to make it count. Revenge isn't rage. It's patience in a suit. It's playing by their rules until they forget you're even in the game. I didn't want to scream. I didn't want to throw her stuff on the lawn or post some pitiful breakup story online begging for validation. No. Kathleen had made a choice to live in fiction. I was going to give her a front row seat to the reality she thought she'd escaped. And I wasn't just going to hurt her. I was going to make her doubt herself. It started with breakfast. The morning after the confrontation, I woke up early and made pancakes. Real ones. The kind she used to beg for when we were first married: almond extract, blueberries, warm maple syrup. I even brewed the good coffee. French press. She walked into the kitchen, clearly expecting the cold shoulder, and instead found a table set like the cover of a Southern Living spread. Her face said it all. Pancakes, she said, slow, like she was reading a trap. Yeah, I smiled. Just felt like doing something nice. Want some? She sat down, hesitant. Sure. We didn't talk about the night before. I didn't bring up Billy. I didn't ask where she went afterward or who she texted from the car before coming inside. I just smiled, asked about her week, and pretended like I hadn't already printed out 10 screenshots from her fake email account and hidden them in a manila folder behind the tax returns. Step 1. Disarm. That weekend, I made plans to visit my cousin Brent in Asheville, same town where she'd sent those greeting cards. She didn't question it. Said, "Tell him I said hi," with that sugary sweet tone you use on a dog you're about to take to the vet. But I didn't go see Brent. I went to Warner Street. Turns out, Billy lives in a townhome complex that looks like it was designed by a committee of divorcees and Pinterest. I didn't do anything crazy. Just parked across the street and waited. Watched. Took a few pictures. The guy was a cliché. Jogged in matching outfits. Watered a single hanging plant. Had a bumper sticker that said, "Life's a pitch. Coach youth baseball." The kind of guy who probably complimented Kathleen's strength and thought that made him deep. After that, I checked in at a cheap motel and went to work. I'd build a plan, piece by piece, over the last 2 weeks. I'd already gone through our shared drive, downloaded every photo, every file, every dumb little PDF she ever saved labeled "important tax thing." I transferred her personal files to a new folder labeled Kathleen Warner, Archive. You know, just in case she wanted to keep her affair alias organized. Then I got to the real fun. She still didn't know I had access to our shared cloud calendar, the one we used to plan vacations, dentist appointments, and back when we still cared, birthdays. She never deleted it, just stopped using it. So I started using it. Every Tuesday, I marked an event at 7 p.m., WS session, location TBD. Then I changed the permissions to public. See, Kathleen had synced that calendar to her email at the clinic 2 years ago so she wouldn't double book appointments. And as of last week, her office administrator confirmed it still shows up when someone searches Kathleen Warner availability. Step 2. Expose the crack. She didn't find out right away. I didn't want her to. Not until her clinic manager pulled her into a meeting and asked, "Hey, what's this standing event you have with Winstead Solutions every Tuesday night?" She came home that day looking pale and distracted. Said she had a weird day. I asked if everything was okay. She nodded, too fast. Later that night, I saw her on her laptop, rapidly clicking through calendar settings and furiously typing. I stayed on the couch, drinking a beer and watching Jeopardy. She didn't know I'd already screenshotted everything. The next morning, I scheduled a delivery. This part required finesse. Couldn't be too dramatic, too theatrical. I wanted her disoriented, not defensive. So I had a package delivered to her work. Simple, neat, no return address. Inside? A framed photo of her and me at our 10th anniversary dinner. The one where she wore that navy dress and pretended not to cry when they brought out the cheesecake. Taped to the back was a note. Just reminding you who used to matter. Step 3. Inject confusion. That night, she asked if I'd sent something to her office. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "No." "Why?" She hesitated. "It's just, something weird showed up." "Weird how?" She didn't answer. That weekend, I threw a cookout. Invited the neighbors. Fired up the grill, played cornhole, passed around beers like it was summer 2015. Kathleen tried to act normal. Laugh. Smile. But she was checking her phone every few minutes, texting someone who clearly wasn't giving her the validation she needed. Sunday night, I made my move. I printed out a copy of the apartment lease she signed under the name Kathleen Warner. Thanks to a brief but productive call with her storage unit's payment processor. I slid it under her pillow. Said nothing. Waited. An hour later, she stormed into the living room, holding the lease like it was a dead rat. "What is this?" I turned the volume down on the TV. I don't know, I said. What do you think it is? You're spying on me. Actually, I said, standing. I'm just trying to catch up. She went quiet. I stepped closer. You thought I wouldn't notice the meetings. The lies. The way you get dressed up to go to a community center with a broken coffee machine and no air conditioning. I didn't mean. You didn't mean to get caught, I snapped. She stood there, mouth open, waiting to deliver some heartfelt excuse. But I didn't let her. Instead, I handed her an envelope. Inside, a letter. Consider this my official withdrawal. From you, from the lies, from whatever performance this marriage turned into. I'll be out by Friday. Don't worry, I won't take anything you didn't already give away. She read it. Twice. Then looked up at me, tears forming. This is cruel. No, I said. Cruel would have been telling Billy you had an STD. Or sending your boss the photos from Warner Street. Or crashing your little community leadership seminar with a slideshow. I chose classy. I walked past her, grabbed my keys, and said over my shoulder. Funny thing about betrayal, Kathleen. It's not the wound that kills you. It's realizing who held the knife. Step 4. Exit the scene. I didn't slam the door. I didn't look back. I just drove. Windows down. Music low. Not because I was free, but because I'd finally stopped pretending. I hadn't seen her in 4 days. That might sound uneventful to you, but after 12 years of shared toothpaste, towels, and early morning alarms, for days of silence from the person who used to know your heartbeat like a metronome, that's a lifetime. I'd moved out like I said I would. Packed up my essentials, my clothes, the framed photos that still meant something, and the records she always said made the house feel too old man. I took those with pride. I left her the white couch she picked, the kitchen knives she never used, and the framed quote in the hallway that said, "Love is patient." I took that off the wall and tossed it face down in the closet. Because patience had officially expired. I didn't hear from her during the move. Not a single text, not a guilt-drenched voicemail, not even a half-hearted, "Hope you're okay." Nothing. I assumed she was busy scrambling to patch up her double life. Maybe she was with Billy, explaining how I'd always been distant, or never truly understood her. Maybe she was spinning stories in that voice she used when she wanted someone to pity her without realizing they were doing it. And maybe, just maybe, she was sitting in our quiet, empty house wondering how the hell I figured it out before she even admitted a thing. But that silence didn't last. Late Thursday night, just after 10, I got the text. Can we talk? Please. Just that. No punctuation after the please. No emoji. No fake cheerfulness. I stared at it for a solid minute before replying. Tomorrow. 6 p.m. At the house. She sent back a thumbs up. I turned off my phone and went to bed. And for the first time in weeks, I slept. The next day I got there early. I parked 2 houses down, sat in the truck, and watched our front door like I was scoping a job. Everything looked the same. Porch light on. Curtains pulled. A wreath still hanging from a holiday that ended months ago. At 5:59, I walked up the steps and let myself in. It smelled different. Like lemon cleaner and anxiety. She was already sitting in the living room. Same spot on the couch where we used to watch Dateline and talk about how crazy people were to kill their spouses. Irony's got a sharp edge when it wants to. She stood when I walked in. I didn't say anything. Just looked at her. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying all day. She wore a baggy sweatshirt and jeans, no makeup, hair tied back. The exact opposite of the version she presented to Billy. Thanks for coming, she said softly. I used to live here, I replied, walking past her and sitting in the armchair. The one she always called Dad's chair, even though I never once told a dad joke in it. She sat back down. For a second, we just stared at each other. The room felt like a museum of our failed marriage. Every object was a relic, a silent witness. I didn't know how to start this, she said finally. Try the truth. She flinched, then nodded. Okay. Deep breath. Yes. I've been seeing him. For a while. How long? She hesitated. Don't lie. 8 months, she said. Maybe closer to 9. I nodded. You kept track? No, she said quickly. It's just. I remember when it started. After that fundraiser downtown. The one I told you went late. I stared at her. That was last fall. I know. Do I even want to know how many times? She opened her mouth. Closed it. I don't think that helps anything. It helps me understand how much of my life was a lie. Her voice cracked. It wasn't. Jacob, it wasn't. I swear. I loved you. I don't know what's wrong with me. I laughed. Not because it was funny, Because it was pathetic. You don't get to pull the "I'm broken" card after sneaking around like a teenager. You made choices. Repeatedly. You looked me in the face and lied every day for 9 months. That's not confusion, Kathleen. That's strategy. She shook her head. It wasn't like that. Then explain it to me. I didn't plan to cheat. It started with texts. Harmless stuff. Jokes. Complaints. Then he asked me to lunch. And I knew it was wrong, but I liked how it felt to be seen. To be heard. You've been so distant for so long. There it was. The turn. The classic blame shift. So I'm the reason you had an affair, I said. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. You're trying to justify it by saying I wasn't present enough. Wasn't loving enough. Wasn't exciting enough. She didn't reply. You know what hurts the most? I said, leaning forward. It's not that you cheated. It's not even that you lied. It's that you let me think I was crazy for suspecting it. That you smiled at me every day while handing your attention, your affection, your damn time to someone else, and expected me not to notice. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. Then why didn't you stop? No answer. I stood and walked toward the bookshelf, pulled out the photo album from our wedding, held it up. Do you remember this? She nodded. Page 17, I said. The photo where you're laughing and holding champagne. You told me you never felt more certain of anything in your life. I meant it. Did you? Or was that just what you were supposed to say? I don't know anymore. I flipped it open and pulled the photo out of the sleeve. Then I walked to the trash can and dropped it in. She gasped like I'd thrown a puppy in there. That's what this is now, I said. Garbage. Not because of the photo, but because of what you did to the person in it. Jacob, she said, standing. I made a mistake. A huge, disgusting mistake. But I don't want this to end. I'll end it with him. I'll go to therapy. I'll do whatever it takes. I stared at her. You already did end it, I said. She blinked. What? You ended it the second you decided I was optional. You just didn't tell me. She started crying again. Please. Just tell me what I can do. You can accept that I'm done, I said. She covered her mouth. Sat back down, sobbing. I don't hate you, I said quietly. I wish I did. It would be easier. But I don't. I just don't trust you. And that doesn't come back. Not from this. She looked up at me, tears streaking her face. Do you love me? I paused. Then I said, calmly and clearly, I did. With everything I had. But you buried that love under 9 months of secrets. And now there's nothing left to dig up. I turned to leave. Jacob. I stopped. She stood there, trembling. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I broke us. But if you ever feel like you can see me as the woman I used to be. You're not her anymore, I said. You chose someone else. And I'm finally choosing myself. And I walked out of that house like it was on fire. Because in a way, it was. And I wasn't going to be the one left choking on the smoke. It's strange how fast you can start to feel normal again once you cut the rope that's been dragging you under. Not happy. Not healed. But functional. I was brushing my teeth at the same time every morning. Going to work without checking the rearview mirror 5 times. I even stopped wondering who was texting her every time her phone buzzed. Because now, it wasn't my problem. And that right there? That's freedom. I moved into a small rental about 6 miles from the house, her house now. 2 bedrooms, a crooked mailbox, and a porch light that flickered when it rained. It was perfect. Not because it was pretty, but because it was mine. I didn't bother taking much furniture. Just the essentials and a recliner that squeaked like hell when I sat down but never judged me. The silence in that place was loud at first. It made me itch. But after a while, I learned to like it. Nobody was pretending. No one was lying with their back turned. It was just me, and I could finally breathe. Kathleen didn't reach out again after that night. At least not for a while. I'd expected the usual post-affair parade, guilt texts, nostalgic emails, maybe a half-hearted, I heard our song on the radio, just to see if the line was still open. But nothing came. That silence was louder than any apology. She didn't try to beg. Didn't call my mom. Didn't show up at my work or write some emotionally manipulative letter on stationery that smelled like regret. And part of me wondered if that hurt more than anything else, that she let it go so easily. But then again, why wouldn't she? Billy was still out there. Still offering validation, mystery, the whole fantasy package. Maybe he had a rooftop view and a bar cart full of expensive bourbon. Maybe he told her she deserved more. Maybe he called her Cat and made her feel young again. Let her rewrite her identity one cute nickname at a time. I didn't care. Or at least I told myself that. But closure doesn't always knock. Sometimes it sends a random email 2 months later with the subject line, "Can we talk?" I stared at it for a good 5 minutes before clicking. Just 6 words. "Please. One last conversation. Your call." I almost deleted it, but I didn't. Instead, I replied, "Saturday, 3 p.m. Coffee spot on Ashford. You get 30 minutes. She showed up early. I could see her through the window before I even parked. Hair down, neutral colors, no makeup. The version of herself she saved for moments where honesty might actually matter. I walked in and sat across from her without a word. No hug. No fake smile. No pleasantries. We were past that now. She had a coffee in front of her. Didn't look like she'd touched it. "Thanks for coming," she said. I nodded. Clock's ticking. She took a breath, like she needed to build up the courage to speak. "I didn't know how badly I'd wrecked everything until you left," she said. "That's usually how it works," I said. "People don't notice the fire until the room's full of smoke." She looked down. "I've been in therapy. Real therapy. Not just reading books and pretending it counts." "Good. I needed to figure out why I did what I did. And..." She looked me dead in the eye. "I was bored. Restless. I wanted attention. I wanted someone to tell me I was still worth wanting. I wasn't expecting that." "No excuses," she added. "Not blaming you. Not blaming the marriage. Just me. It was me. And I'm sorry." "Why now?" "Because the version of me who cheated on you, the one who looked you in the face and lied for months, she's gone. And if I'm going to be a different person, I needed to say it out loud. To you." I sat back. "I don't hate you," I said finally. "But I can't forget who you were. Not when that version sat across from me for nearly a year and smiled like everything was fine." "I get that," she whispered. We sat there for a moment, the air between us dense with everything that had gone unsaid for years. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. "I'm not asking for anything," she said. "But I wrote something. Not to convince you of anything. Just something I needed to say." I took the envelope, didn't open it. Just stared at it. "What happened with Billy?" I asked. She flinched. "He wasn't who I thought he was," she said. "He didn't want a life. He wanted a vacation. I was a break from his world, and he was a break from mine. The second things got real, he backed off." "So, what? You're back to square one?" "No," she said. "I'm further back than that. Because now I know how far I can fall. And how much damage I can cause." I nodded. "You told him about me?" She looked surprised. "Yeah, I did." "Good. Then he knows what he was helping destroy." Silence. She looked at her watch, then at me. "I won't take any more of your time," she said. "I just needed you to hear it. I'll go." She stood up, and for a second, I thought she was about to reach out, touch my shoulder, hug me, anything. But she didn't. She just walked to the door, paused, and turned around. "For what it's worth," she said quietly, "you were the best thing I had. And I ruined it. I know that now." Then she was gone. I didn't open the envelope for days. Left it on the counter like some kind of radioactive relic. Finally, I poured myself a drink, sat down, and slid it open. It wasn't dramatic. No flowery language. No poetic rambling. Just a single page. "Jacob, I used to think that love was about excitement. Butterflies. Drama. But real love is a guy who takes your car to get the oil changed without being asked." Subscribe to the channel